This is me, about to score my first and only kill in a player versus player tournament in Star Citizen. Regular viewers will know this is surprising for somebody who almost exclusively consumes PvE content in the game. Don't worry, my performance for the rest of the tournament was much more true to form for the space dad that I am, and yet participating in this PvP event was a real eye-opener in more ways than one. I'm Farrister, and the purpose of this video is to share some of those realizations with you, what the experience of participating in a highly organised PvP tournament was like, whether it was enough to turn me into a try-hard PvPer in the persistent universe, and some of the things I learned along the way.
He is fighting for his life though, and really doing a really good job.
So firstly, the tournament was organised by Avenger Squadron, hosted by ATMO eSports, and was all in aid of raising some money for charity. The whole setup involved a bunch of creators from across Star Citizen, all with a mix of skill levels, placed into teams, a little like a pro-am, where some of the more experienced people were placed with some of the less experienced. In case there is any doubt, in a PvP context, this pilot certainly falls into the latter camp. The whole thing was organised to try to level the playing field a little, and even teams who were knocked out in their first battle would get their second shot at redemption in the runners-up ladder. So, now you're up to speed, let's delve into what it felt like to participate.
This is going to be a very tall order for Farrister currency.
But ahead of the tournament I did some research and upskilling, watching a lot of AvengerOne materials on YouTube as a starting point to understand at least some of the basics. Incidentally, I'd highly recommend the AvengerOne YouTube channel for people looking to learn more about this topic. Just before the tournament started, I was even invited to join a little warm-up session with my teammates, Berks and Paul of AstroPub fame, in a little practice swarm beforehand. That, as it turns out, was not enough, at least not for my part. Some of our competitors trained and trained hard, and that practice really paid off for them. I don't begrudge that either. Ultimately, it's great when performance in mano-a-mano combat is based on skill and experience, because that can be learned, honed and practiced, and ultimately is in each player's own hands to have the choice about whether to invest time to improve. The winning team put the hours in, and that's how it should be. But just how learnable and improvable PvP dogfighting is as a skill was my first revelation. I somewhat naively assumed that my having a fair amount of experience with fighting the AI would stand me in better stead than it did fighting actual players. So, learning point number 1.
Look at this beautiful effort from Farrister trying to stay in the slot there on the Hurricane. Couldn't quite get that nose on target.
Secondly, the overall experience of participating was really positive too. The whole setup was very professional. Avenger Squadron deployed a strong knowledge of what would make an interesting and entertaining fight, and ATMO eSports hosted the event magnificently, ranging from checking everything was set up beforehand, briefing the participants about all of the rules to keep things fair, and ultimately streaming the event at the high standard you might expect from a televised sports program. The commentators and the thoughtful analysis of the fights was informative and fair to the experience levels of the competitors, more on that later. In terms of the actual combat itself, it's easy to see how people get excited about the fights. Going into combat raised my heart rate, and I know it was the same for my teammates too. Personally, I'm at an age where that's probably something my doctor wouldn't advise, but for those looking for the adrenaline highs in Star Citizen, this kind of fight could satisfy that hunger. Flying in formation to the battle zone, and then frantically trying to remember some of the lessons of dogfighting whilst flying the fighter and trying to inflict some damage. Coordinating with the other pilots on the team through voice comms, trying to stay with the group whilst also staying on target. The culmination of it all for me was ending up in a heated 1 versus 1 battle, a mirror setup of Buccaneers with a fearsome opponent, Dora the Destroyer. Dora's skill in the pilot's chair was just too much for me, and after a little to and fro, the better pilot won. As much as that cemented Dora as an absolute hero, rightfully so,
Yo, that is crazy, man.
it could easily have been a low point for me personally. Defeated, unquestionably bested, and having let my team down. But it wasn't a low point, for one simple reason.
I was screaming at the screen, like, come on, Farrister, you can do it! I believe! Get closer!
The community made this the great experience it was. This was an event about doing something for charity, for a good cause. The whole vibe from everybody involved was about building each other up, not putting each other down. My team, AstroPub and Berks, who incidentally were a lethal combination on the battlefield, they didn't gaslight me for my failures or throw blame, they were just good sports about it. Catching the various Twitch chats during the event, the overwhelming atmosphere amongst the viewers in the wider community was a supportive one. Going in, I'm not sure I expected that from what was essentially a competitive environment, but I was pleasantly surprised. I had people reach out afterwards to open the door with an offer of support, without pressure, that if dogfighting was something I was interested in pursuing to improve my skills, there was help there if I wanted to dedicate the time to it. ATMO eSports are a fantastic community resource that we, as Star Citizen players, are fortunate to have access to. The team there not only host PvP combat tournaments, but a range of other events ranging from races like the System 7 or Daymar Rally to social gatherings. You can find out more about ATMO eSports at atmo.gg, and I can't recommend strongly enough to follow, watch, or even participate in what's going on. Incidentally, a lot of the footage you see in this video was provided courtesy of ATMO eSports and gives an indication of the high level of quality and polish that they provide. As somebody who predominantly plays Star Citizen for PvE content, I often read about bad experiences that peaceful players have had at the hands of more aggressive types. And I'm sure that from time to time that does happen, and there are undoubtedly some bad actors in the persistent universe, and that can be a great source of frustration. But I can't stress enough, that was far from my experience during this tournament. The culture was very clearly one of rewarding skill, experience, and a desire to improve, but it was from a place of enjoying the game together, with open arms for those looking to venture into the PvP arena. I suppose what I'm trying to say, as a PvE player, is we ought all be careful not to tar all PvPers with the same brush. There is a depth to this type of PvP gameplay, a skill, a dedication, and more often than not, some really great people behind the computer screen. So that reinforced for me point number 3, that Star Citizen's persistent universe is big enough for all of us, no matter what we enjoy doing in-game. Thank you to AvengerOne for reaching out and inviting me to take part, and to my teammates Berks and AstroPub, not only for carrying me during the tournament, but being such great people to hang out with late into the evening. It is important that I state for the record, since our team was #NotLastPlace, technically we weren't last place. Technically. If you're new here or not yet subscribed to the channel but would like YouTube to show you more videos like this, you know what to do. I'd love to read your thoughts on this one in the video comments, and if you want me to make more videos like this in future, then pressing that like button will give me the nudge. But otherwise, and as always, thank you for watching.